Well, good morning, everyone. It's still good morning for another 10 minutes, and then it'll be a good afternoon. I want to thank you for coming, and I also want to thank all of you for your patience of waiting for this event from January and February and March. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate your patience, but we also appreciate you coming today, and I hope that you enjoyed the lunch. If there's any left, that would be great. I'd like to take some home. No, I'm kidding. That would be fine. So my name is Lynn Snodgrass. I'm the CEO of the Gresham Area Chamber, and we would not be able to do this event without some amazing sponsors. We have several of them with us today. Umpqua Bank, Mark, thank you very much. He's a sponsor of the event. And Mount Hood Community College, Dr. Scary, where did you end up there? Oh, you're sitting beside each other. There you go. Thank you. And also Aero Sanitary Service, Northwest Natural are sponsors as well. And our stakeholder sponsor is Gresham Barlow School District and MetroEast Community Media. Keith, thank you for the great job that you do for the Chamber and for the media company. We appreciate that. They're our media sponsor. We are, just as a reminder, recording this, and it'll be available through the cable channels for MetroEast Community Media and through the Chamber website. While we're introducing people, I'd like to introduce a couple of board members that are here. Dr. Scary is a board member, and she just put a mouthful of food in her mouth. Otherwise, she would stand up and speak. And Karen with us, she's one of our newer board members. So Karen, thank you so much for being here today. We also have an elected official with us. Two of them. One of them is going to speak pretty soon, but the other one is very quiet and in the front row. Councilor Janine Gladfelder, thank you both. So the topic today is all about taxes. What do we get when we pay our taxes? It's a simple question, but a complicated answer. Are we paying enough to get what we need and want? Again, a simple question, but complicated answer. On the corner of the Eastman Parkway and Division, I want you to imagine that, Eastman Parkway and Division, is a major construction taking place. Huge crane on the property that I suspect the crane will be there for months. What is going on there is your tax dollars at work. The taxes that you sent to Multnomah County, that is. But the property right next door is also your tax dollars at work. It's the City Hall. The tax dollars that we send there pay for fire and police and planning and parks and economic development and. It keeps the city running. But at the end of the day, the money that we send to the city is not enough to provide the safety necessary to protect 110,000 residents, 3,600 businesses, their employees, and their customers. Today we will hear from Mayor Stovall and Bess Wills. Both are business owners and have a good deal of experience and knowledge of what is needed and what it will take to bring more safety to Gresham. And that safety is defined as fire safety as well as police protection. On the May ballot is the Gresham Fire and Police Levy. So I want to welcome now our guests who are passionate about the passage of the levy. So we're going to start with Mayor Stovall. Mayor?
My voice is a little raspy this morning. I've been traveling quite a bit, and so that's probably the outcome that I receive for doing those travels. Let's give Lynn a big round of applause. Just want to thank Lynn Snodgrass for her leadership and continued leadership here in this community, and her leadership throughout the state of Oregon historically as Speaker of the House here in Oregon. We want to thank you for everything that you've done to help us all move forward in this effort to have not just a great city, but a great state. So thank you for all of those efforts. You know, Lynn just said that ultimately this is really about our city and how our city can continue to move forward. What I'm excited about is the fact that the city of Gresham has accomplished so many things in its existence. We think about now Gresham is the 4th largest city in the state. I pause for applause. Thank you. Appreciate that. I know that was random, but the city of Gresham is the fourth largest city in the state, 115,000 residents. Many times folks don't know that because Gresham tends to be a quieter city in many efforts, but that's changing. When we think about economic development, we think about the foundation of our cities, our communities, our towns, our state. To give people family-wage jobs is one of the foundational things that we can do to ensure that folks have that poverty to prosperity opportunity. We want to make sure that we put the rungs back in the ladder. We can't continue this great work unless people feel safe, unless we have the resources to ensure that folks, when they're in their highest moment of need, have the assistance that they need, because every second counts in responses to medical emergencies. So that's why I start with conversations surrounding the great things that are going on in our community, the great work that happens with job force and workforce development at Mount Hood Community College, the great work that they do to ensure that our young folks have the ability to attain those jobs and receive those jobs. And again, if they don't feel safe, then they're not coming to our community to get educated, to get trained, and then thus to find the jobs that fit who they are. Not only that, I think you can see all of the different construction that's going on around our community. Down on 181st and Sandy, actually Northwest Enforcement, they're down there. I'm sure you can appreciate all of the development that is going on north of Sandy. Pretty much historically from about our wastewater treatment plant all the way down to about 172nd, that was all vacant land except for a few industrial buildings. Now that's almost entirely built out. That's additional jobs. We got Granger, that is going to be employing a number of folks there. Breakside Brewery, I know many of you like to drink beer. I've seen many of you drink that. Maybe one too many sometimes. So yeah, no names. So with that, we've got tremendous opportunities that are burgeoning in our community. And Lynn already talked about the library. Libraries of today aren't the libraries of the past. This is a tremendous facility, about $135 million investment that's coming from Multnomah County. That could have gone anywhere in our region, but it's right here. It's going to be a library that enhances the opportunities and exposure and access for many, many people, but it's also going to have roughly a 200-seat auditorium. Almost a convention space or mini convention space for the city of Gresham that we've always talked about, that we've always wanted. They've talked about an event space on the kind of a garden space on the roof. Hopefully that's gone from a maybe to a yes, it's in. But those are the types of things that now our community has always deserved. But again, getting back to the subject matter, none of that is important unless our community members feel safe. Gresham's population has grown by roughly 19% over the last 20 years. But yet our services have not. Our police department has one less officer today than in 2004. Our firefighting team, they have roughly the same daily minimum staffing that we had back in the 1990s. Our police officers protect our community with, on average, one police officer per 1,000. Now, that doesn't really mean a lot unless you know the context. Nationally, police per 1,000 gets up to 3.4. The average is 2.4. The average across the country of police per 1,000 is 2.4, and we're at just slightly less than 1. And police per 1,000 isn't always the best metric to use because ultimately we also have to look at activity, and Gresham has a lot of activity in this area. We operate not just with 115,000 people in population, but we also know that we're impacted by East Portland. And East Portland, on any given day, could contribute roughly, it's a number that is complete conjecture, but we could easily see 25 to 30,000 people coming to access services in the city of Gresham from East Portland. So it enhances the need that we have to ensure that we provide the services that are needed in our community. So if I share with you that again, we're at less than 1 police per 1,000 when the national norm is 2.4. Our fire department is 30% busier than any other fire department, a like-sized fire department in the entire state. And again, folks, When fires happen, when you or your loved ones are experiencing something that is undesirable, heart attacks, strokes, things like that, every second counts. And ensuring that we've got the resources to respond is critical. I don't want to paint a dire sense of need, but certainly every second counts when we're really wanting to respond in ways that save lives. So that's what we're working towards. In addition to some of the numbers I've shared, I just want to briefly talk about kind of some of the things that our community is dealing with. We've got 28 senior living communities and 138 adult foster care homes. Why do I reference that? Because ultimately, that enhances and increases the need of our firefighters and our paramedics to respond to the need that exists here. We have 3 school districts with over 30,000 students. 3 school districts with over 30,000 students. Again, it's just highlighting, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure that we keep our community safe. I want to touch base just briefly. Sometimes I get the question of, Mayor, what about being austere? What about making sure that we're making every dollar count? And some of the staff say, Mayor, you don't want to get too deep into the numbers, but this is a very intelligent group. I could just see by looking at you. Yeah, you're brilliant. Yeah, Tom in the back, brilliant. Rhodes Scholar, right? Yeah. So, sometimes the numbers are, I think, paint the best picture. And one of the areas that I look at as the mayor to ensure that we're making every dollar count, and to ensure that we're not asking for something that's outside of the realm of need. And if we look at, so we've got the general fund, and our general fund is where we have what we call discretionary dollars, meaning we can invest them in our police, our fire, our parks, other things that would enhance investments into our city. Our general fund, again, is where all of these dollars sit, that we have the opportunity to invest in those things. And many of our other cities, like-sized cities, and many cities that are smaller and larger, they also have general funds. So we have these different buckets of finances, and you can't actually intermingle and intermix. So some folks say, hey, you're doing this stuff over here at the park. Why can't you just take those dollars? Because essentially those dollars are very specific to those. I see Dr. Scari smiling because she understands how it works with fund accounting, because the community college also has those restrictions. You can't take those dollars out of this bucket and move it over to this bucket. Those are specific dollars for those buckets. It's Oregon budget law. And so in the general fund, it's fairly constrained about the dollars that come into our community for these specific services, police, fire, parks. And parks get a small portion of that. As a matter of fact, I always like to share this statistic. Annually, Gresham spends and invests about $4 million in our park system. Our sister city, Hillsborough, invests roughly $30 million. Just so you know, kind of the comparisons. From a perspective of what, if we go back to the general fund is where, again, where we receive and expend dollars for police, fire, and parks. The general fund for the city of Sandy, if you were to take the entire general fund and split it out per capita across the entire women, men, and children within those communities, you would have $1,400 that you receive and expend for every person that lives in the city of Sandy. $1,400. The city of Troutdale, if you do the same thing, it's $1,300 for every person that lives in the city. So it's $1,300 general fund per capita to spend on police, fire, and parks, and a few other things. The city of Gresham is $700. Half of the city of Sandy, and roughly just slightly half of the city of Troutdale. So we're a city that's a full-service city that provides police, fire, and parks. We actually provide fire service and some other services for the city of Troutdale. But we are working with $700 per capita. Now, do we need to go to $400? My own personal opinion is no. I mean, $1,400? My own personal opinion is no. But $700 is not nearly enough to fully fund our city to achieve the outcomes that we need to. So that's the critical component that we're here talking about. That's what we're working on with this public safety levy, is to ensure that we've got the resources that allow us to keep our community safe, allow us to respond in the time frames that national norms tells us we need to, especially when we're talking about heart attacks and we're talking about strokes. Every second counts. And so when I look at what we're doing from a perspective of austerity, of ensuring that we're making every dollar count, we are absolutely doing that. In my opinion, there's no other city, and the numbers tell us there's no other city that comes close to be able to achieve the things that we do with the budgets that we work with. And so as we're here, and you can see it across the board, our entire council supports this effort. Police support it, fire supports it. We've got a tremendous number of community groups, organizations, businesses who are standing up and saying, we need this assistance, we need to move forward, we need to make sure that we have the resources to invest in our incredible city. Our police and fire, I can tell you right now, they do a phenomenal job. They do a phenomenal job. The professionalism that exists there is second to none. Absolutely second to none. You don't hear about some of the challenges that other cities face with excessive use of force, because the training that we do here is tremendous. Our fire team, again, I've already shared with you that they do 30% more, respond to 30% more calls than any other community, like-sized community in the state. So with that, I just want to make sure that we give you some of the foundational information about what we're challenged by, what we're dealing with, and why we have dedicated this effort to come to each and every one of you and just talk to you about the opportunity that exists with investing in our community, make sure our community moves forward. And I just want to thank you all for coming out to this Learn at Lunch, to get more educated about this effort and what we're doing here. And you've got your next speaker is going to be way better than me. So just want to make sure that you give her your undivided attention. And I'm sure Lynn's going to come up and make that tremendous introduction. But I just kind of did. Thank you guys so very, very much.
You all will have a time to ask your questions after our next speaker. But in introduction, I also want to point out Sue O'Halloran and Bess are on a committee, a very widely diverse community representative committee to help get the levy passed. It's very diverse. These two people are there all the time representing them. So Bess Wills of Gresham Ford, you want to come up and do your thing? There we go, Bess.
My talk may be very, very short today because Lynn didn't tell me I was being recorded, okay? And you know, the stuff that just might just roll off my lips, you know, you just never know, okay? I want to tell you that this coalition that we're on for this, it's not a coalition for public safety. It's a coalition for Gresham's future. And that was Sue was there, and that was a very big point of what are we going to name ourselves, you know? It's not just about safety. It's not just about police. It's not just about fire. It's about our future. So, but those of you that know me, and anyone else that after you spend an hour with me would know I am not a fan of taxes. So many are surprised when I'm the biggest cheerleader for a safer Gresham, Measure 26247. Many talk about these measures as if only ones that are paying it are residents. Business commercial properties pay around 40% of the property taxes in Gresham. We start out over $6,000 a month. So how many cars do I have to sell to pay my property tax bill, okay? Then it becomes, how many cars do I have to sell to pay the deductible on my insurance claim for just somebody that just trashed my property or stole a car or whatever? And so, yes, it's a lot of money. And if you lease or rent, this is passed on to your business, and then it's passed on to your customers. So when we pay an increase, whether that be the deductible on my insurance claim, When crime and property damage happen, we pay. When you renew your policy, your insurance policy, we are seeing rates that do not align with a safer community. So, do you all understand that we're paying now, right? We're paying because our community is not as well served by the first responders as it could be to make it a little safer. And we feel it, don't you feel it? We are at a tipping point, and any of you don't know about this theory, I would suggest you read that book by Malcolm Gladwell. And we are at a tipping point, and that's why I'm so passionate about what we're talking about here today. Because, you know, I'm going to ask every one of you in this room to not just buy into this, but I want you to go get like about 25 other people to buy into this. Let me begin by saying, I love this community, and I know you do too. And together, we've done some incredible things. I mean, incredible things, like the largest homeless shelter in the United States, built without a dime of government money. I mean, we've done some super incredible things. But we need your support for this measure. And initially, it may sound like a sacrifice, but I want us to flip our attitude and look at it as an investment. I'm not here to give you facts and figures. Travis is way better educated and way obviously to do that, and he did a great job of doing that. You all know the numbers. I'm here to encourage you all to be the tipping point for a more economically vibrant Gresham, a place where our seniors get the response times from the fire responders to save their lives. And our police department has the bandwidth to protect our children from sexual predators. Do you know that less than 10% of things reported in that area get investigated because there's just not the bandwidth? Our community has grown significantly in the past 20 years, morphing from berry fields to welcoming neighbors and families. These families, as business owners, are our clients and our customers. As business owners, we have common challenges in the Gresham area. Our community has lower than average household incomes that much of the metro and many of you have inventory and products like me that cost the same as they do our competitors in Hillsborough. But yet our clients do not make as much money. And so it's important for us to have every competitive edge. And not being safe is not a competitive edge. We certainly have the best views in East County. We live within 20 minutes of an international airport and a stone's throw away from some of the wonders of the world, Multnomah Falls, Mount Hood, the Gorge. So we should be the destination for tourists. But do people want to come to an unsafe place? No. There was just a big article written about that in USA Today about the United States. But we want our town to be the place people want to come. We suffer also when we ask firefighters in a 24-hour shift to save a teen out of an overdose, resuscitate a senior from a heart attack, and work the scene of a fatal auto crash, then to ask that same man or woman to work another 24-hour overtime shift because of the short staffing. As business owners, we know overtime is not effective use of our resources, and it takes a toll on all involved for not great outcomes, whether that be attrition, engagement, morale, and the list goes on and on. The same for our police. We expect them to be kind and supportive and engage and engage to assist somebody on the street, an addict that is causing a problem at a local business. And at the same time, within a second, be ready to take a bullet at a school shooting. I mean, that is asking a lot of individuals. And so we would want, that's the very people that we would want to support and be sure that they're not understaffed. I mean, based on anyone's guidelines, and Travis gave us the guidelines, like why in the world would we understaff the people that are willing to take a bullet for our children? I mean, the investment in quality fire and police staff will come back to us tenfold. Think about it. Some of the great things that could happen. What are some of the great things that could happen? Well, we could have lower insurance rates because we have an adequate number of cruisers on patrol. We could have higher property values because families are would be fighting to live in Gresham neighborhoods. We would have a more economically vibrant community because everyone wants to visit us, because everyone thinks this is the best place to come to. Longevity and health due to less stress and quality of services. This is a proven statistic that if you live in a safe community, you're just gonna live longer because you're less stressed, not thinking about crime. And better than anything else, Gresham will become a destination for those dining, shopping, or most importantly, investing. This is our time to shine. This is our time. This is so, so very important. This is our tipping point. Please support this measure. Encourage your employees, your clients, your neighbors, your families, your pets, everyone. You know what I'm saying? Anyone you come in contact with. Together we can make Gresham safer. The coalition is a place for a better, safer community. Gresham for a safer community. And so I can't express, I could go on and on about stories that have happened in our business, that if we had a few more patrol units on the streets, wouldn't happen. We all know someone that has lost or had damage that wouldn't have happened if we had a few more officers. We know that how important it is to get fire to the right place at the right time. The other day I read on Gresham's Finest that there's a high-speed chase over here in this part of the city, and there's a kidnapping going on this side of the city. So we can't clone these people. I mean, like how can they be at all these places at once? We just need more people on the street. And so I really ask you, please, please, thank you.
Bess, don't go away. Great job. I have a question for you. We're going to open it up to all questions. Bess, in the last 2 or 3 years, how many cars have been stolen off of your lot?
Yeah, don't tell this. This is not a paid ad, okay? Okay, because I don't want customers to feel unsafe when they come to our delership.
Well, this is after hours. So how many after hours cars have been stolen off your ship?
No,
is that a better question?
Well, no, it's just it's something that I'm not proud of. But we've had at least 25 cars stolen off our lot in the last couple of years.
How many of you have had a car stolen out of your front yard? So what I'm saying is those are dramatic. You've had 3? What kind of car are you driving? Hello, high demand.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that this is a neighbor business. I'll tell you one story, then we'll open it to questions. A long time ago, I have 7 grandchildren. A long time ago, one of the grandchild that was 9 years old went into Orient store. It's a service station little store. And he had some money in his pocket. He was so excited, and he started to buy things. But they didn't have any shopping carts. They didn't have any of those cart things there. So he was putting things in his pocket so that he could keep accumulating, and then was going to pay on the way out. Well, he didn't get a chance to pay on the way out because the owner of the shop said, "You're out of here. You may never come back. You're stealing from me." He was mortified. His mom was mortified. She came and apologized. She knew the intent and all that kind of stuff. That was 9 years ago. People are now walking into stores and taking out cartloads of merchandise, not candy, cartloads of merchandise. And we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the patrol to be able to stop that from happening or catch them on their way out. $1.35 per thousand will help solve that problem. It will not solve the problem. It's going to help solve the problem so that we can get on the road to better. So, a question for anybody?
Lynn, I want to give him this for
a comparison.
A comparison
Okay.
from 2003 to 2019, we had less than 5 cars stolen.
Oh.
Okay, and so then in the last
2003 to 15, that's 12 years. That's a dozen years.
No, well, 2019.
Oh,
Yeah,
19.
So,
I didn't
so
miss
it's
that.
almost, over 15 years, we have less than 5 cars stolen, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, sadly, 4 of them were all the same person, and it was a long, it's a long story. It was,
You want to give his name? Because we're going to do this. Okay.
No, he's,
Okay.
he's on my watch list or whatever.
So, Mayor, why don't you and Bess stay up here, both of you, to answer any questions that we might have. Don't be shy. This is your chance. Oh, hello.
Chad Withrow, Northwest Enforcement. Bess' last comment was, reading and hearing about something happening over here with a kidnapping and something happening over on the other side of the city. And I recognize that from my line of work, and what happens there is it's not just the resources to cover those 2 major events, but it's the decrease in everybody else not receiving. Because if all of your resources are sucked up on 2 events for hours, then that means that all the car prowls, all the shoplifts, all the nuisance crimes, I guess you could say, don't get addressed at all. And there's no bandwidth because there's not enough staffing to go back and even follow up on those nuisance calls after the fact. And so I guess my question is, and I heard a lot of different comments, but I'm thinking about, much like taking care of a house or anything else, if you don't maintain it, it just continues to erode. And at some point, it almost just needs to be demolished. And I worry that if we don't do something different and move forward and start correcting the measure. Well, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of answering my own question, but that's where.
But I think, Chad, I appreciate. I think I feel your pain, and I feel is that, Chad, we have always had some form of security, private security at the dealership. Like maybe a visit 3 times a night, and that with what the police were able to do was enough to protect us. Now, if I had full-time security 24/7, it's not enough, to protect us because of the amount of crime that has come into our zip codes. And is that a fair? And so we really need to have enough sworn officers on the street that can arrest and take things, because we can hire a lot of private security, and they do a wonderful job, and they did a great job, obviously, of protecting our dealership for 15 years. But that's not enough when you need to get these people that are doing the crimes arrested.
Another question?
Well, and I'll actually respond to
Sorry.
that a little bit. I mean, ultimately, when we think about, like you're saying, Chad, the comprehensive nature of prevention versus just response, and that's what we're doing right now. It's primarily response. When you're staffing at the levels that we are, that's what we're doing. So we've got to elevate our contribution here, and also, it's making sure that you have the right resource for the problem. You talk about the follow-up. We've implemented the community safety specialist platform here in Gresham, as other communities have done. They're the ones that potentially now in the future will respond to auto theft where there's not a current crime in process, but we do need to send somebody out. Maybe they can identify certain things that may allow us to be more proactive in the future. And proactivity is something that we just don't do, and we need to be doing to ensure that we can decrease the overall level of the criminal element in our community. But that takes a constant pressure on everything that happens in and around the city of Gresham. And right now, we don't have the ability to do that. We're very successful at the things that we're currently doing, but it's almost all about response. And just a couple of statistics that are most saddening: we had 10 homicides in the city of Gresham last year, and in 2018 we had 0. So if people want to say a 0 is something that you just can't achieve, we did it in 2018. And just for context, in 2017 we had 9 homicides. So we went from 9 to 0 in a single year. But that takes I talked to former Mayor Bemis just recently and said, how did you do that? And he said it was all the things that we know we need to do, but we don't have the resources to accomplish. Last statistic is we lost 12 people in traffic incidences last year. 12 folks in preventable situations. Right now we don't have a full traffic unit. And so most of the time our officers just have to respond if they actually see something rather than have focused traffic units. And so those are the types of things allow us to have a more livable community when we have the ability to do the maintenance stuff that Chad, you were just referencing, because all of that contributes to the overall safety and decreases the criminal element in our community. Once they hear we're doing things that are proactive, they leave. And Portland, the city of Portland and the region was very effective in the 90s doing that exact thing. And we've gone away from it, and I think we need to get back.
Ironically, the criminals are safe here, which doesn't make sense, does it? There we go.
Thea Enos, great big nerd for Gresham. I have 2 questions. The first one is, what are the biggest hurdles that this levy is facing in getting passed? And the second is, what resources can we share to the skeptics, like on Facebook? Is there a good, trustworthy source that we can send people?
I'll start with the hurdles. Ultimately, the largest hurdle that we have is just information. When we did the polls before we set up the levy information, we found that a lot of folks just weren't aware of Gresham's current situation. And so really, as Bess has already referenced, talking to friends and colleagues, educating them as to the challenge and the problem. We'd love for you to advocate for passage of the levy, but ultimately some folks don't want to be told what they do. But giving the information, I have found sharing that information has really elevated their appreciation of the challenge that we sit in. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. It used to be that you had to basically inform and talk to a person 7 times to get them to retrieve and keep the information. Now it's 15 times because of the static and noise that we have from all of the outlets that we receive information from. So it really takes a constant kind of drumbeat to ensure that folks are hearing what we're saying. When I share, we're at $700 per capita compared to our sister cities that are substantially higher, sometimes twice as much. That's shocking to folks, because I had no idea. I thought we were spending just like everybody else was. So it's really about information and letting folks know, and we're doing all that we can to get that reach out there. And when that was done during the polling, there was a substantial increase in approval as folks heard what the situation is. And I'll let Bess give us her insight.
Yeah, because, I hate taxes. But obviously, one of the biggest things to overcome is, this is talking about somebody's hard-earned dollars, okay? These are hard-earned dollars for people in our community. And, 40 years ago, I was a single mom, and there was only $15 left at the end of the week, and so I have tremendous empathy for that and so forth. But as I said in what I told you today, you're going to pay one way or the other. And this is a way to pay that we can all move forward positively, you know? And so I really think that, but really, you guys are the answer. Everyone in this room is the answer, because in today's world, you have more influence on your social media page than us probably sending out $30,000 worth of direct mail pieces. and because your neighbors trust you. You know, trust has to be earned. And sadly, for this particular kind of, when you do this kind of voting, we haven't had years and years to earn trust for this levy, if you will. We know the answer and we know how to do it, but we need you all talking to your friends, your colleagues, your employees, your clients, your everyone, and because I strongly feel that if we don't do this, it will cost us in numerous other ways.
So Thea, I think that there's a website available. Sue, do you know the name of the website?
It's
Gresham.
on the one-pager.
Save for Gresham, and it really is a great website. It's easy to look at, loads of different kinds of information. So for many of you, even on Facebook, you can tell people that's where to go get the kinds of facts and information. So I think it's, those dollars for that website came from many of your businesses and your citizens to help and put that campaign together.
So the bottom line is there are facts available and information available in some reliable sources. Thea, thanks for the question. We have another one right here.
I'd like to say I appreciate the data, bringing that data and then seeing and hearing the reality of where we're at and where we will be at 3 years, 5 years from now. My major question is, if for whatever reason our citizenry doesn't see the urgency or the possibility of 2-3 years down the road, what are the consequences and where are we at as it relates to the gauge of us as citizens understanding if we vote no, or where are we at on the gauge of our understanding as a community?
Thanks, Willie. That's, of course, that's a phenomenal question. And there's always the balance between reality and kind of the fear-mongering, wanting to make sure that we're not just putting out there, if this doesn't pass, the sky's going to fall. So there's always that balance. So a couple other numbers that I'll share with you is that this levy is designed to actually allow us to bring on 13 firefighters and 9 additional police officers, those are sworn officers, and some additional support staff, but those are the critical numbers. 13 firefighters, 9 police officers. What we're not saying effectively is those are the additions. If this levy doesn't pass, we're looking at some pretty significant potential cuts. And again, this is not about fear-mongering. It's just looking at the data and information that we have available to us. We will be millions of dollars short in our ability to fully fund our police and fire. Folks say, well, we can't decrease police and fire at all, and that would be our desire to not do that, although 90% of our general fund goes to police and fire, 90%. And our property taxes only fund roughly about 44% of our police and fire budget. So property taxes currently fund about 44% of our police and fire budget. So the challenge that we have is that, yes, we're looking at potential cuts. We would hope we could find ways to mitigate some of those cuts. But the picture is pretty challenging. Bess talked about the tipping point. Great book, by the way. Malcolm Gladwell, phenomenal author. We're at that tipping point. I mean, we've pushed as much as we can, and furthermore, we got the American Rescue Plan funds a few years back. That is the primary reason why we haven't seen some of those cuts already. You know, this we've had a deficit that was funded and backfilled by those dollars. Those dollars run out now; they have to be spent down here in the next fiscal year. So without this funding, the picture does get pretty challenging in regards to being able to fully fund. So right now we're at, I said, just slightly less than one police per 1,000. You know the situation with our fire. Without the levy, the picture gets more dire. And again, we may be able to find ways to mitigate some of that, but there will be there has to be an impact to our operations if we're not able to fully fund them. So great question, really. Thank you very, very much.
Tom, question?
Microphone so they can hear you.
They've done some really smart things about, and we need to keep pushing for this, like putting task force together so that we aren't funding the whole car theft ring for East County, with the sheriff's department and different things. We all as taxpayers need to keep pushing for that from other funds, within the county and so forth too.
Tom has a question.
Tom Slider, retired resident since about 1970, so I've been in Gresham for a while, other than a couple years where I was gone. Number one, there is another ballot issue that I don't know if it's going to affect us or not, and that's the penguin habitat. I don't know if that's going to take some votes away from this. And secondly, I've heard a lot of comments about people knowing that there's also some funding on our bills right now that is not going to go away, and they're concerned about that. Just your comments on those two things.
Great questions, Tom. Ultimately, we've got to always balance necessity with timing. And would it be great if we can be on a ballot with zero other financial measures? Yeah, absolutely, no question. That's going to be the answer. Yes, we would love that. Although that's not going to happen. I mean, there's so many entities across the region that need various forms of funding that there's no real opportunity for us to go on a ballot without some type of additional financial ask from other agencies here in the region and beyond. So that's a challenge for sure. Will it take some votes potentially? But that's not a chess game that we can play of just being able to say, we're going to only put it on the ballot when there's nothing else available. We just encourage people to take a look at this specific issue and understand what it funds and how we can fund it. About the utility fee. The utility fee, we've looked at this in every way we possibly can to ensure that we can fully fund our city. We actually looked at other cities, other like-sized cities. Almost every city in the state of Oregon has a utility fee. Some actually higher than us, where we currently are, some lower than us, but there's always this balance. Furthermore, there's the contribution of everybody in our community. That's what the utility fee allows us to accomplish, ensuring that the resources and the services provided also match who's helping to fund those. The utility fee goes across every, what we call door, or folks to contribute at that level. Property taxes goes to the property owner. So it's a different structure of financial contribution. There's benefits on all sides. And so the response there is that, again, our challenge is what we do look at the total contribution that folks make. And the interesting thing is that every decision that we make as a city council, we actually are on the side of that. So all of us as city council, we pay the fee, we pay the increase in taxes, all of those things. And I think there's sometimes a notion that we somehow benefit from this, but we don't. I mean, it really is about making sure that we take a look at the entire needs of our city as city council and city leadership, and move forward with the right things that help us balance the resources that we need and require. And I can tell you right now, Bess has said it a couple of times, we're going to pay it either way. I have a motorcycle, and its ignition got drilled. So they go in, they drill your ignition, that way they try to steal your motorcycle. And that cost me $750 to repair. I can tell you, I'd rather pay that $750 to the city of Gresham to enhance and improve our community safety than paying it to the dealership to replace my ignition. And so it's those types of things. I said motorcycle. I purposely do things to my vehicle so I can show up at Gresham Ford. Oh, You're back in here, sir? Yes, yes, I am. I don't know how this happened. So, what?
It's my understanding, and I know there are resources out there for those that just absolutely, that the utility tax, that they have an inability to pay, okay? So the good news about the door tax, I don't know if it's the city, I'm not exactly sure, I don't want to misspeak, but the city or some funding, I don't know, do you know, Janine? Utility assistance. And so there is a way for people that absolutely cannot pay that utility fee to get assistance. Now, there is not the same thing for a property owner. So it's there's a fine balance there, but the great news about, not great news, but the offset to that is that there is a way for people that have an inability to pay with the utility tax to get some relief.
So Mark has a question. Oh,
I want
Mayor,
to follow up really quick before we ask the next question. Ultimately, Tom, what you just asked is also a question that I would ask to you all, because ultimately, we can sometimes be in a vacuum looking at all the needs, and we really want to understand, what really speaks to individuals and people, because ultimately, I can tell you right now, Gresham is one of the lowest tax rates in the entire state. I mean, so and it's been that way since 1998. And so our sister cities the taxes are substantially higher in sister cities and neighboring cities than where we are as a community. And so our challenge is that we want, and that's why we put together the Utility Assistance Fund to ensure that those folks who are absolutely negatively impacted have resources and some type of respite from that. But we also understand that we are literally one of the lowest tax communities in the entire state from a city base. Now, folks will say, well, but my tax bill is X, Y, and Z. $3.62 per thousand comes to the city of Gresham. The rest goes to someone
library.
else. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges.
Okay, there you go.
Travis, you started with some numbers in regard to officers per thousand. And then you just reiterated that we have about 100, right? And that we are going to add 10 more. And that only moves the needle fractionally overall. What happens in 5 years from now when that number doesn't really show any effect whatsoever? Because our base will continue to grow and our numbers will continue to be hampered by our current budget. So what do we do at that point? You have 19 fire and police, fire, and then 10 more police. That's only fractionally solving the problem.
Phenomenal question. So we know that, again, our officers and our training allow us to do more per officer than any other community that we're aware of. I talked to some of my national mayor counterparts, and they're surprised. They're absolutely surprised. So what we look at is to say, okay, if we're doing this much with 100, we're going to see roughly a 10% increase in our ability to have our officers on the road. Now, what you just said, we have 100. That 100 is effectively where we're at right now. It doesn't include what our full budget is. So as we add 9 officers, we actually will get north of 130, I believe we're getting to 138 actual officers. Now, that's not all officers on the street. So my reference is officers on the street. And so we actually, if once we're done with full hiring and everything, we would be at about 120 officers total that we will have on the street, ensuring that we can increase and enhance that number. So we'll be slightly above we'll get to about 1.1 per thousand. And then our budget increases on an annual basis, things like that. So and then we are expanding with our community. So we certainly see ourselves being able to continue to keep up with that number. Although what you're saying is exactly right. We're under-resourced across the board, and that's one of the big challenges that we have. But we will see a difference. I mean, we actually, because of the training, because of our dedication, we will absolutely see a difference of doing the things that our team already does extremely, extremely well. So that's kind of, I don't know if you have any follow-up, but. Yeah, absolutely. I think Lynn actually said that earlier.
You bet.
Lynn said that this is not going to fix the problem, and I wholeheartedly agree with her comment. the other piece of that is that 9 officers, because of the training timelines and all of those things, that's about what we could hire and get on board over the next 3 to 4 years. So we wanted to ensure that we weren't asking for too much. We were on point. So that's really why the number's 9. We can do more with fire because we control our own fire, what do we call it? Training academy, and then the police academy, that's not controlled by us, so we only get a certain number of slots. So just this is how sausages are made. And so ultimately those are all strategic, understanding what we could do. There's other efforts going on to relook at, what we call comprehensive tax reform here in the state of Oregon. If you want to talk fix, that's a much bigger conversation. We're a part of that. As the city of Gresham, we're actually sitting at the table having the discussion with the League of Oregon Cities and a bunch of other agencies. And really, it's about the distribution of tax dollars, not necessarily just asking for more, but we're in the middle of a $5 billion tax kicker. And I'm not saying that the tax kickers are bad. That's not the conversation we're having. But we're having a $5 billion tax kicker. And I can tell you right now, I don't think I've had anybody come to me and say, you know what? I'm sure nobody could use those dollars as a state or as a county or a community. Nobody said that. They're like, couldn't you use that to do better work? Yes, we could. So what I'm saying is that I can probably tell you not many people are going to come to City Hall and say, you know what, Mayor, I just got a nice kicker. And as a matter of fact, here you go. I paid that tax a few years ago, but let me give it back to you. And so when you say fix, a fix has to be having a conversation about comprehensive tax reform and the distribution of that tax scale, which could easily take 5 years. And the levy is a 5-year term. So we
Mark, one of the biggest problems with what you're saying is that what that would require to really make a substantial need would be $2.50, $3, and there is absolutely no way that that would ever get passed. $1.50, and we all understand what you're saying, but we need to give a little rice to a starving person so that they can get stronger, so that they can maybe plant their own rice. So that's thank you for that. It is something that we're all aware of, but we also then, some people want the city to be held accountable to what that money is, and in 5 years, we can vote on it again, and maybe at that point in time, we realize that, gee, that helps, so maybe we'll add a little more, or not. So we have another option, another opportunity from whichever vantage point you're coming from to take a look at that levy. Bess, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I got to say this.
All right.
Okay, so my tax bill here is before the discount. I gave you the one after the discount because I tried to get all the discounts, So it was $77,987.91. Anybody want to guess how much went to the city of Gresham? Huh? No, 14,000. But only 14,000 of that $77,000 went to the city of Gresham. The other went to the Gresham Barlow School District, Mount Hood Community College, Multnomah Education, East Multnomah Soil and Water, Metro, Multnomah County Historical something or other, Multnomah County. Multnomah County gets more than the city of Gresham. Multnomah County Library, Port of Portland, Urban Renewal, again, Gresham Barlow.
We're an hour program.
Yeah. So anyhow, I'm just saying, you guys, we need to... I mean, one of the biggest you hear from people is that the city needs to manage their funds better. There's a lot of other agencies that need to manage their funds better.
So we've got time for one more question. And Mark, I really appreciate what you brought up, because we're all thinking 9 doesn't sound like very many, but if you need something, that one extra police officer or that one extra fire truck is a good thing. So.
Well, it's technically a 33% increase of our current, staffing on any shift. So a 33% increase, so yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a 33% increase for our police.
Number guy to number guy. There we go. Kathy, you're the last question.
It's not really a question, it's more of an observation, and it speaks to a little bit of Mark's point, and that is that by adding these officers, it's not all on the officers that are going to affect that change. It's going to be the citizenry and the criminals who see that there are more officers on the street and they won't get away with as much. I do think that will curb some of what we're saying, you know, organically. The other thing, though, is that when I've been out on the campaign trail, what people say is, my neighborhood's just fine. I'm not sure why I need to pay for this. So it would be incumbent upon us, as Travis said, it is absolutely an education game right now. And so when we can speak to the fact that we don't have a traffic unit, and I think Mike McKeel just put on Facebook, he was T-boned in an intersection because people aren't obeying the laws because there's no traffic unit. That's what we need to share individually with our neighbors and friends who happen to don't see it in their neighborhood, but it is affecting them and it will continue to do so. So that's not a question, that's just an observation.
Well, tipping points are mental because in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he points out the Ugg boots. You know, that's one of the, what are those stories? Who in the hell looks good in Ugg boots? No one, okay? And that was, it's a mental tipping point. Somebody made somebody think that it's fabulous, and it happened. So I'm just saying, if we think we're safer, we will be safer.
Risky giving Bess a microphone. Did you appreciate Bess and the mayor being here today? Really can. Very much so. Thank you.
If you have any other questions, Councillor Gladfelder is here. Some of the Safer Gresham folks are here. Be sure and get a hold of the chamber office. I'll get you to the right person to answer any of the questions that you might have. Or if you hear of things as you start to talk about this and you don't have the answer to it, have that, or that question, have that person send it to us too, and we'll get that taken care of. So I want to thank our sponsors once again: Aero Sanitary, Umpqua Bank, Mark, thanks. Northwest Natural, Mount Hood Community College, Dr. Scari, thank you. Gresham Barlow School District, MetroEast Community Media. Keith, do you have any of the slips with you today? Okay, contact the chamber office and we'll get you the information if you want to see this rebroadcast. So, as I always end, have a great rest of the day. Go forth and make a profit and stay safe, and don't forget to vote. Thank you for being here today.